Hey, it's Lou, and here's the thing. Nobody likes a hypocrite. One academic called hypocrisy the only unforgivable sin, and Dante designated a special place in hell for hypocrites. More recently, charges of hypocrisy have overrun our political discourse. Politicians, cable news pundits, and Twitter mobs love pointing out perceived double standards. But I wonder, does the focus on hypocrisy get us anywhere beyond finger-pointing? Or is it merely a product of outrage culture, something that keeps us uninformed and distracts us from the real issues? It's easy to understand what bothers us about hypocrites. Like liars, they are untruthful. But worse, they're also condescending. Daniel Effron, a professor of organizational behavior at London Business School, explained to me that we're so offended by hypocrites because we suspect they're motivated by self-righteous posturing and not some set of lofty moral principles, as they'd have us believe. This accusation is often levied at Leonardo DiCaprio and Al Gore for their climate change activism. They don't sincerely care about the environment, detractors claim, because they frequently use carbon-emitting private jets and have large carbon footprints in general. So it's not climate change they're interested in. Rather, they're interested in appearing interested, in enjoying some sort of holier-than-thou status and all the accolades that brings without actually being holy. Worse, the criticism continues, it would be one thing if they simply lied about their environmentalism, but obnoxiously, they're wagging a self-righteous finger at us in the process. Jillian Jordan, a researcher who co-authored a fascinating study on hypocrisy, told me that's one of the reasons hypocrites get under our skin so much. Their deception often includes condemnation of someone else or the public at large.
Now think about the shame that each of us will carry when our children and grandchildren look back and realize that we had the means of stopping this devastation.
Now, to be fair, Gore buys carbon credits that theoretically offset his carbon consumption. But my point is, who cares? Whether or not he or DiCaprio are bona fide environmentalists does not have anything to do with the core issue. Maybe it reveals that they're full of shit or have no shame or the Nobel Peace Prize lacks prestige, as I've argued before, but that's not relevant to the underlying real-world, real-impact issue of climate change. Professor Robert Talisse, a philosopher at Vanderbilt University, told me that regardless of the topic, the message and the messenger are two distinct things. And dismissing the fundamental issue because the spokesperson is problematic doesn't make any logical sense. If your doctor eats 3 cheeseburgers a day, that doesn't mean fatty foods are suddenly healthy. If DiCaprio has a carbon footprint the size of Godzilla, that's not going to stop a drought or the famine that ensues from climate change. And look, if you want to argue about climate change, fine. There are a small number of legitimate scientists that can supply smart talking points, but focusing instead on what an Oscar winner does in his free time is a pivot that doesn't advance substantive conversation. Yet, charges of hypocrisy play a huge role in cable news coverage and the cesspool that is a large part of Twitter, where whataboutism is currently very popular. That is, when confronted with a thorny question, people ignore it and bring up another vaguely related issue. Russian collusion? What about Uranium One? Missing emails? How about the Access Hollywood tape? A conversation like this, full of finger-pointing, redirects, and red herrings, can quickly spiral out of control. They sideline facts, figures, and expert analysis and encourage these emotionally loaded, dead-end conversations where a scandal or a topic isn't explored, but just superficially compared to another one.
Why aren't you at the border screaming every day to stop this $500 billion enterprise
I've actually
child
covered
smuggling?
human trafficking.
Great.
I've
Do it
actually
again.
covered.
It prioritizes subjective opinion over careful investigation. And in the case of scandals, it fosters a sort of anarchy. If bad behavior can be excused because someone else acted worse, where does that end? That's why Talisse calls charges of hypocrisy argumentative diversions. He says they short-circuit rational discussion and are really designed to feed the outrage machine fostered by for-profit news channels and the audience members who tune in for spectacle and cues on what to be angry about today.
Gore's personal home in Nashville, Tennessee, consumes 21 times as much electricity as a typical American home. Can that be true?
Because the truth is, substantive issues are hard to understand and debate and talk about on TV. They're filled with nuance and historical context. With something like climate change, you need to comprehend how to read scientific data. All of that is much harder than just pointing at Al Gore and saying, that guy's full of shit. And That instinct to point out hypocrisy is especially powerful in the United States, according to Talisse, because Americans have such a strong anti-authoritarian streak and hate to be corrected, shown that they're wrong. But in my opinion, at least, so much of our national dialogue has descended into a no-holds-barred argument, not a civil debate. We take turns pointing out each other's inadequacies and moments of failing, and real discussion on who we should be and how to get there are lost among the noise and all the hurt feelings. Plus, Thanksgiving is ruined. So, if you try to engage someone in a discussion about an idea, immigration, national security, the economy, and you wind up focusing instead on personalities and political parties, on precedents and who's to blame, just stop. Reorient the conversation towards the underlying idea. And make sure you're not prioritizing catharsis over persuasion. It's satisfying to win a fight. It's harder to change a mind. Okay, I'm gonna go live my life.
Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy.